Hello everyone, good afternoon. Welcome you all to the second session of the fourth day of the FTP. Delighted to welcome our own faculty, Dr. Rajesh Kumar PC, as the research person to this session. A hearty welcome to you, sir.
Thank you.
Participants, please note, your mics are muted by default. Please use chat box for any queries or questions to the speaker. You can pose the question during the presentation and it will be answered during Q&A session. The slides by the speaker will be made available to the participants based on the speaker's discretion. Recording of the webinar will be available on SJC YouTube channel in a week's time. Webinar is purely for gaining knowledge and self-improvement. Feedback link will be mailed to the participants at the end of Q&A session. Please fill and submit it before 6 p.m. E-certificates will be issued to the participants who attend all the sessions and submits the feedback form of every session. Now I invite Dr. Babita Rohit, Assistant Professor, Department of Business Administration, SJEC, to introduce the speaker to the participants. Over to you, ma'am.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Dr. Rajesh Kumar PC, Professor, Department of Physics, St. Joseph Engineering College, Mangaluru, speaker for the current session on research and higher education. Degree in physics and PhD in physics from Mangalore University. In 2005, he completed Master of Information Technology from MAHE. He has 24 years of teaching experience and 15 years of research experience. He has published 16 papers in international journals and more than 25 papers in national and international conferences. He is a principal investigator for DAE BRNS research project and has received a grant of ₹21 lakhs for the project Irradiation Supported Design and Study of Nonlinear Optical Materials for Photonic Applications. He has also received research grant for the project Growth, Characterization and Properties of the Photonic Materials from VTU. In addition, he is a motivation speaker for various youth empowering programs and a columnist writing columns for leading newspapers. With this brief introduction, I now request Dr. Rajesh Kumar PC to begin.
Thank you very much, ma'am. Am I audible?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I thank St. Joseph Engineering College management for this wonderful opportunity. I thank Dr. Sandhya Das, the Chief Coordinator, Dr. Felsi, Dr. Babita for giving me a nice introduction on about my achievements. We had 4 days of sessions. We already completed 7 sessions so far. This is the 8th session on writing research proposals and funding agencies. Let's see what is research. Before that, I would like to share a very interesting story of a game of chess, and this is told by a famous scientist, Richard Feynman. 2 players, A and B, they have been playing the game of chess. And the third person, C, is not actually communicating with A and B. He is from a distance, he is observing what these A and B are doing. And this has been continuing for years. And one day, the person C who is observing could understand something about this game of chess. But he is not communicating any one of them. A and B, they are continuously playing. So one day you could write some of the rules on this game of chess by mere observing. You could write number 1, the queen has to be moved like this, the pawn has to be moved like this, the bishop has to be moved like this. All rules he made just observing this game. To his surprise, one day, the move made by A is not in accordance with whatever the rules framed. So at that point in time, he can't just talk to A and tell him that, oh, no, this no is not allowed. He has to change his rules as per the observations which he made on the game of chess. So this is what research is all about. And now we can understand what is this game. And game is the game which is being played by the nature. It's wonderfully playing, and the person sees none other than the scientist. The scientist, the researcher, who is just observing. So we can say the science or research, the key ingredient to be a great researcher is a mind of observation. So when we can keenly observe anything, we are eligible for doing a great research. If you can just go back to the history, then you can think when the research started. It is not yesterday or day before yesterday or 100 years back. Research started from the day 1 of the new creature. So new creature is born nearly 3.2 billion years back. Naturally, when the creature is looking for its food, just like the first creature was like algae or virus or bacteria of that level, and nowadays the coronavirus is also searching for new habitat just to reproduce itself. So if I can see what are the domains of this research and why research is still going, and when it started. First it started for food, then of course shelter, then slowly as the man advanced, then came clothing, then transportation. And you know that in transportation particularly, the first breakthrough was the discovery of a wheel. This brought a huge change in the entire transportation system of the mankind. Then it slowly advanced, and it is continuously because of the research. Then man thought of his comfort, then entertainment. Then related to health. Can anyone suggest me whichever the field is skipped over here? And if you want to answer anything, you can just type in your chat box in between, if at all, for the questions, since I can't, interact with you question and answer, which is generally my nature of discussion. So these are all the fields where man is continuously doing research. Now let us see what is research and how it is classified. And it is classified into 2 categories: informal research and formal research. Here, informal research is a part of our life. And in every day we do research. Maybe if you want to eat a nice food, you research for hotels. You want to go for a movies, of course you can't do because of Corona. And if you want to purchase a good mobile, you do a research. If you want to get a life partner, husband, a good husband or good wife, you do a research. You'll ask, how is that girl? How is this girl? Indirectly with somebody. And this is all the part of life, and this is also a research. And some people do a research on research guide himself, like who is the best guide, so that we should not have any harm during our research, doctoral research. And many of us do a research on, purchasing a dress, which shop is good and which color, which brand, and so on. And particularly, I would like to share a light moment which I had with my students. I was asking for while explaining one of the concepts, I was asking them, okay, when you go to any textile shop, what is your preference and what is your priority? They'll say, okay, it's a brand. Some of them they'll say it's a quality. They will answer like it's a color, so matching. Then at the end of the day, which dress you'll purchase? Then he'll say the dress which we like. Right here, I used to tell them, remember, you should not purchase the dress which you like. Hey, what you're telling, sir? Then what else you have to purchase? Then they used to ask me like continuously, tell me, sir, then what to do? Then I used to tell them, you have to purchase a dress in which you are looking good. Then they used to say, wow, sir, like that in research also. Of course, we have our own taste, our own interests, but we need to understand that interest can be created in any field. We need to understand what is the scope of that field, what is the growth potential, what is the future scope, what is the funding possibilities, and these are all the things we need to understand before we get into any type of research. Or even when we are guiding to our students, we simply should not guide them just for the sake of a PhD degree. We need to understand that for him, it must be a growth. So this is about informal growth, informal research. What about formal research? Of course, you had enough definitions. I'll give you the definition of this also. Research is defined as the creation of a new knowledge and or the use of existing knowledge in a new and creative way so as to generate a new concept, new methodologies, and understandings. This could include synthesis and analysis of previous research to the extent that it leads to a new and creative outcomes. Say, in short, why we have to do research? To create a knowledge, create a new innovation. A small change, it can be a small change in our existing device, but it comes because of our constant thinking, constant research. Now, let us see what is the relation between research and PhD. Many of us, we have misunderstood that research means PhD, but research doesn't mean PhD. Of course, it might lead to PhD, not necessarily always. And you have to understand that research doesn't mean that the end product of research is PhD. PhD is a byproduct of research, not the end product. Because PhD is, it's just a training for us to get into research, but not it is ultimate goal. So here is a famous statement by Albert Zinn, a famous Nobel laureate biochemist who worked on C vitamin particularly. He says, research is to see what everybody else has seen. That's why the name has come research. It is not search. Research, because it has done again and again. And to think what nobody else has thought. That means you need not, in your research, you need not give a new discovery. A new analysis is also a research. A new analysis for the existing concept, the experiment. Why research? Why we need to do research? This is a great question, and many of my colleagues are apprehensive, like whether we have to do research or not. So why research? First of all, if at all we are researching, definitely we are contributing to the growth of science and technology. One simple example I can give you in electronics. Earlier, the triodes were used like before the semiconductor physics its study came into existence. Once semiconductors were studied, then intrinsic semiconductors, extrinsic semiconductors came in, then we could have transistors. The entire electronics is being changed because of the development of semiconductor physics. So this is what happens. Of course, this growth need not be very intended. The beauty of research is sometimes we get results which we never expect. like you might be knowing J.J. Thomson, who discovered electron, but he never intended to discover electron. When he was doing some work and he applied a high potential across a vacuum tube, and he observed that the electron ray is being generated. And this is a wonderful discovery. At that point in time, he never thought that it would be a wonderful use for the mankind one day. And he never expected, because it was a fundamental unit of an atom. So electron led to the discovery of X-rays. Then X-rays led to a great breakthrough in the field of medical. Just see how the research goes hand in hand from one field to the other. And that is what any research happens in one particular field, it has a collateral advantage or benefit in every field. The soul of any research is to the benefit of mankind. What is the use of research on personal level? Research gives a wonderful experience of thrills of exploring some new things. It's an experience by itself. No doubt it gives a professional growth. It gives us a professional growth. Research makes you a unique teacher and learner. And this is the beauty where a teacher must get into research, because of research, the quality of teaching and the quality of engaging a student, it will increase very considerably. You can inspire your students to learn anything with a research aptitude. For example, you are teaching your subject very well. You do everything. You transfer entire your notes into students' brain. Of course, you will be considered as a best teacher. You'll get a very good feedback, because everything, whatever you teach in the class, is understood by the students without any heckle or so. You repeat whatever you present as it is in the textbook, as it is in your notes every day, every time, every semester. You will be considered as a wonderful teacher. So, student, he need not go home and work, because everything, whatever he listens to you and he understands in the classroom, he need not go home and he will go home and sleep. But if at all you are into research, you will inspire your student or create a curiosity in such a manner that your student never go home and sleep without doing anything else, at least something about your topic. So that is the beauty of research. That is the difference between you are being research oriented or an ordinary teacher. Many people tell me that, sir, our students are very ordinary. They don't require any type of high research or so, high qualification. Their IQ is very low. So what is the fun in doing research, sir? Many of my colleagues were asking across the college, sir, for teaching these people, why should we do doctoral degree? Sorry, we are not doing PhD or research for the sake of students. One more thing is, see, if you want to convince any concept to the slow learners, you need to go deeper. A deeper research is required to convince them and to break the higher concept or complicated concept into smaller units as mere common sense. That's why a great researcher can convince an ordinary student and he can make the thing understood by the student. That's why don't under the impression that your students are of low IQ, so research is not required. More research is required to convince slow learners. So that we have to be very clear in our approach. I'll give one example of USA education system. Generally, PhDs are there in our nation only in universities, only in higher education colleges, institutions. This is the first-hand information. My brother was telling, in USA, his son's KG class teacher is a PhD. And she's a PhD in child psychology, just imagine. Can you imagine this is happening in India? We never, because in KG class, LKG, UKG and all in India, the less qualified people teach them. But just see the difference, what is happening across the world, particularly in USA, in Russia and all, the people, those who teach lower classes, particularly LKG, UKG and all, they are highly paid more than those professors of the universities. So just imagine what is the difference between us and those institutions, those countries, why they have developed, because the curiosity has to be developed not at the level of engineering, it has to be developed at the very basic KG class, because at the level of KG class, small kids are very curious. So we have to foster their curiosity, and it has to be enriched with the help of a research mind. A researcher can only answer to such students, I mean to say kids. Research is PhD. Many of us think that research is a permanent head damage. PhD means permanent head damage. I should tell you one thing. Research is not permanent head damage, but worry about the research is a permanent head damage. Many people get registered, but they never do what is required. And at the end of the day, keep worrying about their PhD, about their promotions, and or nothing is happening. So this is what, the difference. If you worry about anything, even if you worry about the life, it is worrying only. I mean, it is a permanent head damage for your personal life. So research is not permanent head damage. It's very refreshing, because if you genuinely experience the research, then it will be one day definitely it will give you a PhD. But if you are not ready to experience the research and enjoy the whole process, and you are focusing only on the end result of PhD, then of course it will be definitely a PhD, permanent head damage. See, here is a statement: experience the life, don't think about it. Like that, if you have to enjoy your life, just experience it. Not keep on thinking about it, worrying about it. Like that. Research is also like that. Don't just keep worrying. Sometimes nothing happens in research. It's okay, because that is also one phase of research. When we see that in the research process, nothing is happening. So it is why, what to do, people keep worrying. It's okay. Nothing happening is also a phase of a research process. It gives an identity. Research gives an identity, definitely. If you are a PhD in your field, you'll be definitely recognized. You are such and such, knowledgeable in that field. It gives an identity. It also gives a social recognition. If you're a doctorate in your field, definitely it is a great social recognition. And one more thing I should tell you here, that is, I never enjoyed any of my college level studies or post-graduation level studies, because there you need to learn, then you have to by heart the things, memorize, then you will have exam, you omit them. So you have to undergo so much of mental pressure. But in research, such type of mental pressure is not at all there. You can just enjoy your learning there. So that is the beauty of research. So that is the beauty of getting into doctoral degree, where you are learning, you are enjoying the whole process, and at the end of the day, you are getting a very good degree. That is PhD, of course. Research throws a wonderful challenges which will drive us out of our comfort zones. So many of us are not ready to come out of our comfort zones. That is the main problem of getting into research. We think that if we don't like getting into research, we will have trouble, or it will be a very tough thing. As I said, it's a permanent head damage. It is a total worrying. So this is not the case. When we get into research, we need to go to the people. We have to interact with them. Sometimes many times we don't have any infrastructure. So we need to the people and talk to them. So we have to compromise our ego there. So we will learn those things only when we get into research. Those challenges of life, we will be addressing in a very successful manner so that this will be a growth for us. So when we address our challenges in our life, that is pushing us beyond our comfort zone, and that gives a wonderful experience for us. One more question is whether PhD is difficult. Yes, of course, PhD is, it's not easy. Whether there is some sort of pain, yes, of course it is. You have to undergo some pains, because there is no pain and there is no gain. You have to understand this. If you are not ready to undergo any pains of your life, I don't think you'll enjoy your life. Just imagine you are going to a gym. Then you say there are various weights over there, and you lift small weights, 1 kg or 2 kg, because the heavy weights are paining. So what will be the result? Even if you do it for 100 days, there won't be any change. But instead, if you are ready to undergo a pain and lift heavier weights, then you see your muscles are growing. Then you say you can really enjoy the whole fitness, the body development, everything you can enjoy. That's what. So more you are ready to undergo the pain, it will have a greater dividend. Something like, in case of, if I can give an example of a football. When you play a football, you just imagine there are no defenders. Sorry, wow, wonderful. How many goals I can hit? I think you can beat a Messi also. But will you enjoy that? Whether there is any charm in that game? No, not at all. When there are defenders, you face them, then with all difficulty you hit a single goal. Then it is a wow moment for you. It's a real experience for you. Like that, research also. It is, of course, you need to invest some sort of pain, some sort of challenges, then it has a greater dividend. The richness of life missing as long as we are into comfort zone, as I said, as long as we are in the comfort zone, we'll be missing that richness of life. Don't think that rich people are always enjoying their life. No. The people, those who are ready to undergo pains and have rich experiences, are really enjoying their life. We think that being in the comfort zone will enjoy the life. No, the irony is, if at all we are in the comfort zone, we, in the long run, we have to cut a sorry figure. So, thinking that, sir, I could have done that, I could have, get into research and so on. Not ready to undergo any pains. That's, as I said, missing rich experiences of life. When you are confident of yourself, ready to face any challenges, that's what I put this line, because just address your comfort zone and try to come out of your own comfort zone and be ready to face any challenges. I'll give an example here. Generally, when people, when they are preparing for the wedding, they always think whether I will get a good husband, good wife, or whether my wife will listen to me, or if she gives me a divorce. Right? First you get married, man. Then you will see. Because when you are not ready to face a life, then nobody can help you. So if you are ready to face any challenges, then you can be okay with any situation and in person. So that is the beauty of it. So research teaches such a wonderful lesson for us. Experience thrills of life, going deep into something of of our interest. So in research, we chase our interest, and ultimately we get that ultimate truth of that. Then we feel, oh, something warm for us. And this is a very interesting slide. I should tell you this slide. This is a very famous book by Csikszentmihalyi. Its name is Csikszentmihalyi, a famous psychologist. When should I start my research? I would say right now. Or I'll ask you, why didn't you start so far? Because research will, open a new door for yourself, a new experience, a new door of opportunities as well. It is altogether a new experience, I should say. I should tell you. Generally, some faculty, since many of us are teaching in the teaching field, I'll tell you one thing here. Many of us are in the field of teaching, and we have experience of some 10 years, 20 years. Then we feel, okay, now I can teach any subject or at any point in time. I just get up and, go and teach. So teaching is not a big challenge for me. So this is the feeling of cakewalk. This is the main obstacle of a growth. You need to understand that if you take anything for granted, naturally when we get experience for say some 10, 20 years, we feel that teaching is, it's simple and the students never ask any questions. They are, of course, as I said, they are not up to the mark. We define ourselves, what the students are and what their capabilities are. And accordingly, they define us, what we are. So I should tell you, this feeling of, the cakewalk or feeling of I can do it at any time, it is a major obstacle for our growth. Say here is a concept called flow. And you just see this graph. This graph is, it's a graph, skills versus challenges. Okay. Imagine when you just started your career as a teacher, your skills are very, very low, and students are, very, you think that the students are engineering students, they're highly knowledgeable and so on. So naturally, what you think is your skills are low and your challenges are very high. So what is the result? So you will be in the domain of anxiety. Before you get into the class, you'll be fully sweating. You never experience, something called when your challenges are low and your skills are low, you experience a flow there. Suppose you are teaching small kids. You have a skill and your challenges are also small, and just see, you experience a flow there. Experience a flow means you just enjoy the whole process. Okay, I'll give an example here. If at all you are playing tennis, playing a tennis is, it's very difficult. We know that for a first timer, returning a serve itself is a great challenge. So in the beginning, you'll just enjoy just hitting back a serve, right? You'll say challenges are very low and your skills are low and you experience the flow here. But as when you develop some sort of skill, you don't enjoy just returning the serve. It doesn't, you can't enjoy that. Now let us think that somebody from your boyfriend or girlfriend who has got very high skills in the game of chess, she or he wants to play with you. Then your skills are less, your opponent's skills are high, then the challenge is high, then you feel a bit of nervousness. You don't experience a flow over there. Now just imagine over the years you develop a skill and also the challenge is high. Once again, you experience a flow. And this is what happens in research as well, and even our teaching. Over the years, what happens is we develop a great skill. We think that we have a great skill of teaching. So when we reach over here, we think we underestimate our students. We always underestimate them generally, that they are of low IQ. They don't have any great talent or skills. So challenge is very low. As per our opinion or understanding, challenge is very low. Your skills are high. What do you feel? Still, it's boring for you. And remember, most of us, the teachers, we never enjoy our teaching field because say we take the things for granted. For that, how to bring a change. How to bring a change? We are into teaching, okay? We feel it is boring because we are doing everything, you know, whatever we are doing in the previous semester, we are doing the same thing this semester, next semester, of course. But I should tell you one thing. You can, being a teacher, upgrade your challenges. Okay? You can upgrade your challenges so that your challenges are high as well as your skills are also high, and you just see this flow is a dynamic. It's flowing, it's going high. So this is the beauty of life. So now when it comes to a high skill, your challenges are also high, you just enjoy your teaching. I should tell you here, the secret of making this teaching job very challenging by doing research. And that is what, doing research, I don't mean by doing a research for your doctoral degree. Doing research for the topic which you are teaching. Every semester you are teaching, say, such and such subject. Today, what you taught, the same thing you have taught some, say, last semester. But what is the difference? What is the difference between last semester and this semester on the same topic, same day which you taught? The difference will be brought by this particular research. We can upgrade the challenges in our teaching by researching into our topic, and I will be, deciding that I will be present this particular topic which I have been presenting over the years in a different dimension. Okay, in a different dimension, so that, say, presenting it in a different dimension with the help of research will increase your challenge. It is not that the student's IQ is increasing the challenge. It is your own, mindset which increase the challenge, and in turn, who is benefiting? See, you will enjoy the flow. So this is a great flow. That means every class you enjoy, and this is the result of your research. So I should tell you here one more thing. One beautiful statement I always used to remember. We are not in competition with we are in competition with ourselves. We are not in competition with somebody else. Remember that if at all we are in competition with somebody else, if every colleagues of ours is ordinary teacher, then we are getting, say, every semester we are getting 5 as a feedback. My friends are getting not 5, they are getting 3, 4, like that. So who is a great teacher? I'm the great teacher. Because you are comparing with, if your colleague's standard is low standard, then I'm sorry to say this, your standard is also at par with them. So we are not in competition with somebody else. When you are competition with somebody else, I'll give example. A student who scores 60% is much better than 60%, but he is not great because he is in competition with somebody else. As long as he feels that nobody is crossing 60%, he feels is the best. But when you are in competition with yourself, whatever you taught yesterday, today you make a difference. Whatever I taught on the same topic, same subject, today I taught the same topic, same subject, but I added value to my yesterday's class and today's class compared to yesterday's class. And how we can do that? So only research. Generally, we read same notes and go to the class. We read same book and go to the class. Of course, we are excellent teachers because we are transferring the entire content of the notes to our students. And we are excellent. They also understand. They score well. They score 100%. But does it bring any change in their thinking? Whether we are reaching to the level of students' curiosity, whether we bring any visualization of the concepts, whether we are able to do that. If we can do that with the help of your research, if you read, at least that's why university is offering many reference books, many textbooks, because their intention is at least you read a new book, you will get a new thought. Your value to your class will, will be altogether different. So that is what we need to understand as teachers. If at all we are into teaching, so research is inevitable. research gives one of the finest thrills of life. As I said, it gives a thrill. More challenges to brain keeps it younger. So many of my colleagues, they used to express their feelings like, sir, I already reached 50 years, 50 years of age. I'm almost now 55, almost 3 years for my retirement. Should I get into research? Why, sir? Why should I get into trouble? I should tell you, research has nothing to do with your retirement. I should tell you, research is for the life, not just for the sake of retirement. You don't frame yourself that, sir, I got only 3 years. I will appreciate if you get into research after your retirement. It's wonderful, because research gives a new dimension to your life altogether. As I said, when you pose new challenges to your brain, you can keep it younger. That's why, remember, we are not 50 years age or 40 years age or 30 years age. Our age is so much. One of the medical doctors is to tell us in a speech, our age is only not more than 6 months, because every 6 months we get new cells. Then what about aging? Aging is because of our mental programming. We keep telling ourselves that, okay, you're that much, you can't do that, you can't do this. But just remember, it is wonderful if you get into a classical dance in your 65 years of age. Just challenging yourself. More challenges you put to yourself, then you see the result. It will give you a wonderful, thrill. It will give a new life. It will give a, good health. So, as I said, I'm near to retirement. Just come out of that notion. You are a wonderful capability to do research at any age. I should tell you one story here, a story of a 90-year lady. This lady, she was, all in her lifetime, she was cooking. She was a housemaid. And she used to cook nice dishes, of course. But now she is 90 years age. And she felt sorry because she didn't do anything except cooking. One day, her granddaughter came to her and said, Granny, you are cooking so nice dishes. Yes, Baba. What can I do for you? No, not for me. Granny, can you cook something so that I can give it to my neighbors and let them also taste your skill? So this old lady did the same, and they distributed all the nice dishes cooked by this old lady of 90 years age. And there was a huge rush, and they had to keep a small shop in front of their house. They kept a small shop, and her all dishes were sold out. By the time she reached 94 years, she became the entrepreneur of that year. And she was awarded as a great entrepreneur of that year. And it was a story of 90 years. So remember that. That's why getting into new challenges keeps us younger. It keeps us happy as well. So getting into comfort zones itself is lifeless. So don't think I can't do this, I can't do that. You can. Just see the difference. Just decide what is required. So here is one more thing I should tell you, a very important research by another psychologist, by Andrew Erickson. Andrew Erickson, power of practice. He gives a rule of 10,000 hours rule. What is this rule? If anybody feels that I don't have a skill of research, just listen. If you practice for 10,000 hours, you can calculate how many days. In your lifetime, I'm telling, not overnight, like continuously. If you practice for 10,000 hours, you can master anything and become world class. Because the repeated practice makes a difference. You can practice be a good singer in your age of 60. You can be a good dancer in your age of 65. You can, become a great writer in your 70 years age. So there is no age bar. Only age bar is for our decision. So repeated practice makes a difference. By practice, one becomes consciously competent. Increased practice makes us unconsciously competent. I hope you can agree with this. When you're first time learning a cycle, of course you learned, then you're very conscious, right? While riding, you're consciously riding. But just imagine after 1 or 2 years, when you are conscious, now you can ride without holding the handle, you can do circus, because you become, by practice, you become unconsciously competent. And that is the beauty of practice. So tolerate pains and inconvenience. The ability of our personality to tolerate pain and inconvenience, of course, it's not easy to practice. It's very difficult because it is inconvenient. It is not enjoying, gives us trouble. Our mind tells, no, we'll do it tomorrow. So if you're ready to undergo the pain, if you have a greater ability to undergo pain, naturally, there is a dividend for that. Okay, why emphasis on research? Now there is a question here. Your ACT is telling, without PhD, you won't get, a promotion. Remember, here we need to understand why there is so much of emphasis on research. Earlier, B was enough for engineering, and just BSc was enough for BSc, BA, BCom degree was enough to teach degree classes. Then they made it post-graduation is compulsory. What is the reason is, actually, when you get into higher education means degree, any degree for that matter, you are supposed to learn anything with a curiosity and out of research. But it never happened. Either in your degree, either in your any kind of degree, never happened. You just learned just like a PU or any other lower classes and wrote your exams and got your degree. And there was no element of research over there. Then they thought, okay, let's make it post-graduation. At least by post-graduation, the teachers will have some research aptitude. And they made MTech or MSc or so a compulsory for teaching. But even then, those post-graduations became, just like an extension of their lower degrees, just an extension of graduation. So there was no other goal. Then what they did, no, now you have to make, you have to do a PhD, so that PhD is a compulsory, so that you can train yourself. Remember that nobody's intention that they have to see your PhD there. Their intention is, at least when you do your PhD, you undergo some sort of research training, and you develop some sort of research aptitude, which will be imparted to the students. That was the main reason why the research is so much focused. Not that they want your degree. You can't say why PhD is required to teach B people, because it is required, because when you do your research, you sharpen. You are supposed to, of course, nowadays there are institutions which will give you ready-made PhD also. People are into just getting their doctoral degree, and there are many situations where people have their degree and they don't have research skills or research experiences altogether. That's all there. We are good at manipulating the things, but we have to understand why there is a focus on the research, because at the higher education level, we are not just transforming our knowledge from our brain to our student's brain, or transforming our entire notes into student's brain. We are not just doing that. What we are supposed to do, we need to give them a visualization of the concept. We need to inspire them to develop a curiosity. We need to inspire them to be thinking, because this visualization or chasing a curiosity or thinking, it is a part of our research. Remember here, research requires thinking. And to think, we need research. The expansion of thinking happens based on the research. So thinking and research, they go hand in hand. You have a research work, and based on which, with that background, you think, and you increase the dimension of your thinking with the help of research. So if at all, I'll give one example here, very simple example, how sometimes I used to make the students to think. I never teach like 2 plus 3 is equal to how much? It's easy. Students never, never have to, think for it. It's easy. 2 plus 3 is 5. But I'll ask in a different way. Using 2 and 3, in how many ways you'll get 5? There you require thinking. Of course, you're doing the same thing. Of course, some students might complain that, sorry, you're making the very easy concept very complicated. But our intention is at least to create thinking and giving a visualization of the concept. I'll give you one example. Of course, it's a very simple example. You have to tell me if you can type what is that concept is all about. If you can type in that chat box. One day I kept a chalk on the table, and then I asked. Now chalk is on the table. Can you see? Is it moving? It's not moving. When it will move, it won't move. How many days it will require to move? It will never move. Then I just threw a chalk piece out. Then they could see the flow, and after some time it came down. Now I threw a chalk piece, and you could see why it came down. So there is a gravity, there is a air resistance. Okay. Now I gave you some sort of visualization. There is a body which is at rest. Now there is a body which is moving. Eventually it came to rest. Now, can you give me these visualization into sentence? Okay, they got some picture in their brain. So body is at rest. So their concept is a body which is at rest, it won't move. A body which is moving, it won't stop. What is the second part of it? What is the second part of it? Tell me, when the chalk piece will move, and somebody comes and hits it, that means what? They're applying a force. Okay, naturally, you understood that when our body is moving, because of gravity, because of air resistance, it came down. So now we can give this as a statement. This is mere observation, right? This is what is happening in and around us. And this is the observation of nature, what we do. And students can grasp this observation, and now they observe, they visualize, and they come up with the concept itself. And one of them said, sir, a body which is at rest, which will continue to be at the state of rest, a body which is at the state of uniform motion will continue to be at the state of uniform motion unless it is compelled by an external force. What is this? It is Newton's law, Newton's first law. I would have done in other way. I would have stated when a body in the state of rest or information will continue to be in the state of rest or uniform motion unless it is compelled by blah 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 blah. Just imagine the difference. How could I give this? Before giving that imagination or visualization, I should have thought of it before. So that is what the element of research. As I said, research is not only for your PhD. You do research before you can present your topic, so that when you present, student undergo that they will understand the concept of visualization, and they will be under the curiosity, okay, what it is, and they're constantly thinking. At the end, they understand the topic as well as it is a wow moment for them. Just something super. Why? They could visualize. And remember that even visualization helps them to remember also. When the moment visualization is the best technique of remembering. it will remember. They will definitely remember because of the visualization, because of thinking, and they will have some sort of curiosity. Oh, this is wonderful. I'll give you one more, some of the things over here. Okay. Say, here you can see what it is. A boy is holding a clay. And just imagine you're also playing with soil, and just you're playing with the soil or a clay. And if the amount of clay is very small, what do you feel? When you know it is in your fist and you just tighten your fist, the clay won't escape. And the amount of this clay is more than when you tighten your fist, this clay will just escape in different, between the fingers. And this is something I can apply to the amount of charges. If the amount of charges are more, I can expect more electric field. An amount of electric charges are higher the number of electric charges. I can expect, I'm giving an analogy, higher the number of charges in an area or in a region, higher the electric field. Then second, take a magnet and divide it into two or any number of pieces. You will always end up with N and S, N and S, N and S. You can't single out a North Pole or a South Pole. No. So this is, students themselves can of course break a magnet and see for themselves and hang it. But always just N and S, N and S, N and S, N and S. And coming to the third, here is a coil and here is a magnet. And it is connected to a galvanometer. And what this boy, what he does is just he moves this magnet in and out. And he could see the reflection. And one more interesting thing is, higher the speed of his movement, higher the deflection. That means a changing magnetic field will produce electric field. Higher the rate of this changing magnetic field will produce higher field, electric field. Here, the second picture which I have been showing you, here you can understand that magnet never can have a single isolated, we can't have a single pole, single magnetic pole. Here we can understand higher the charges, higher the electric field. Coming to the last, here, when the current flows through the conductor, okay, the magnetic field will be encircling that conductor. So that means this current causes the magnetic field. This is a visualization I could give to my students. Remember, I hope you understand what I'm telling. These are all nothing but the Maxwell's equations. Had I started with the definition and had I started with the heading that Maxwell's equations, then the students would have been almost, this is a complicated topic I never understand, man. That is a notion. But you just give a clay and just tell them to do this, and they just experience it. And they can very much relate to the real life. What's happening? Then you bring your concept there. And they will have that visualization. And even for the magnet, of course, I could have told this in mathematical version. The divergence of D is equal to rho, or divergence of E is equal to rho by E, epsilon, I should say. Rho by epsilon, where epsilon is the permittivity of the medium, and it depends on the medium as well. And this is the divergence of B is equal to 0, and curl of E is equal to minus dB by dt. The curl of B is equal to J plus the current density plus d by d of the current density there. Displacement current density. So, had I given them the equations, they would have thought it is a very complicated concept. But no concept is complicated because all concepts are derived from nature. So, if you are ready to do a research to the level of its visualization, and if you can present it so that the students can relate that visualization to a concept, then definitely the whole understanding process is a pleasurable process for them. And one more, okay, I'll give you one more example here. Go back. Okay, just imagine this is nice dishes are in a conveyor belt moving. I gave this example and I created this example, of course, to convince them one of the concepts. I don't tell what it is. You just imagine. Once I said to the classroom, now I'll be, say there are 60 students in the classroom. I'll be, passing a conveyor belt where it carries various different dishes, 60 dishes, and each one of you have each one of you has a unique dish. Let's say unique dish. You don't compromise in the sense you don't take two, only one. That is your unique, dish. You don't take anything else other than your unique food, I can say. I know your unique dish, unique food. Being a teacher, I know who is taking what. Previously, I know you're in and out in the sense, as far as food is concerned, you take this food only. So let us say this conveyor belt passes through the class and it goes to the other side. Okay. Now, it passes, of course, all the students, they take their food, their dish, then it goes to the other side. And after seeing at the conveyor belt, what are the food remaining there, I could understand who are absent in the class. Are you getting my point? By looking at whoever is absent, they won't take their food, right? Whoever is present, they will take their unique food. So after looking at the conveyor belt, which are the food plates are remaining, and I already previously know who are all take what, then I can know who are all absent in the class. So this example I created for myself to explain one of the concepts. Can anyone guess this? Okay, I'll tell you this particular example I gave to convince them in the pollutant measurement, the application of laser in the pollutant measurement. The laser beam, a tuned laser, is passed through a sample. Then it is being photographed. By looking at the characteristic peak, which are all present, absorption peak, we can know what is the composition of that particular sample. So just to convince that particular concept, I gave this example, and they can very much relate. Oh, what is absorption? So here they are absorbing the food, if at all they are present. If they are not present, if that component is not present, you can't get a absorption peak in the spectrum. So to convince this concept, we need to sometimes research. We need to have our own visualization, and we need to do relating the concept to a real life situation, so that the students will be very curious. So it is our sole responsibility that we go back this. So I wanted to tell here the quality of research work in Indian universities, why it is lacking, because I should tell you here one key point. At the grassroots level, at the level of teaching, when I can develop the research aptitude and inspire the student to learn any concept with a research base, then what is the result? What is the result of that? The result is good publication. Of course, the student will come up with a new innovative project. The students, of course, it will help to come up with a new very good publication. Very good publication in the journals will, it will increase the ranking of the institution, of the university. Just see. And in turn, in the world scenario, the ranking of our university or our institution will be going up. So where it started from? It started from the very, our research or our way of teaching with the help of thinking, with the help of, giving them the real life situations and creating curiosity. And the students will be chasing their curiosity because they have worked enough in the classrooms. To do that, it requires at least some extent of research. Some extent of research is not about doing a PhD. I'm telling, research need not be about the concept itself. Research can be about about the examples, about the analogy. It can be about the model. It can be about the example, whatever. When all these come together, then we can make a difference in my classroom, so that classroom students only coming up with the new innovations, new inventions, or definitely they will be driven into into the world of research. And no doubt, because of our influence, the students are getting into into the research field. So here the research, because of research means our teaching quality of our education institution go up. So higher rating for the institutions will result because of our small work at the classroom level. So we need to develop a passion for research. Whatever you want to know, you need to develop curiosity. It can be anything. There is so there is a very famous statement from a great scientist who got a double Nobel laureate, both in chemistry and physics, Marie Curie. Be less curious about people and more curious about ideas. That is, different categories. People, those who are great, they always think about ideas. Mediocre people always think about people. I showed you this. So for me, what is teaching? For me, I don't teach just to transform information from my mind to my students' mind. I always see that I give some sort of visualization. I'm not, boasting myself, but my approach to our teaching is like that. Trying to give a visualization, or just make them to be curious on the subject which I'm teaching, and make them to think on the subject which I'm teaching. And at the end of the day, my constant thinking right from the day one of my teaching career till now is how to make the classroom session very enjoying, how to create a wow moment. I consider my class is very, wonderful class whenever the students, whenever they broke out more than 5 to 6 times, because I don't say you should have some ready-made jokes for that. No, you can convert the very concept into a very fun moment, even in the classroom as well, so that the students enjoy the whole process of learning. And that must be the main focus of the student, I mean the teacher, when he is taking the class. So I should tell you here, if you can see top 10 universities, can you see any one of our universities here? You forget about top 10, none of our universities are within 100. Within 100. It's a sorry state of affair. And I have to tell you, just see why United States is so rich. It is not rich by itself. Here it shows. It is rich because of its research work. Okay. Say MIT is standing number 1, Stanford University, United States, Harvard University, once again, United States, University of Oxford, UK, California Institute of Technology, it is United States. See how many, just imagine, it's a wonderful thing. I don't say that America has such a great potential, but they, foster that research attitude and taking all great talents from the world. Not that they are born in USA. Say our institutions, our universities, all our IITs are, they are becoming training centers for USA. The moment they complete in a very good institution, they get into USA. Of course, they want job, they go there. But we need to change the scenario. let's see how the great institutions think. I gave some of the thoughts about the research so far. Now let's say whether this is matching with the thinking of the great universities. Here, the tag word of MIT is mens et manus. It is a Latin word. Mens et manus means minds and hands. It's a beautiful because every knowledge comes from humans' mind, and you require a good mind, a researching mind, and you require hands to perform work. So it has to go hand in hand. So let's see the statement at MIT: pushing the boundaries of the knowledge. See the beautiful word, pushing the boundaries of the knowledge and possibility is our joyful obsession. They use a word, you just see the joyful. Research is no longer, painful. I like this word because in a very simple sentence they are putting. And we celebrate fundamental discoveries. See this. We celebrate fundamental discoveries and practical applications. Can you tell what it is? So fundamental discovery is nothing but the science. And what is practical application is the technology, the engineering, alike. As educators, we also value research as a potent form of learning by doing. Through MIT's undergraduate research opportunities, you see, more than 80% of the undergraduate enrich their education through engaging in frontline faculty-led research. So this is how MIT thinks. Now, coming to Stanford, one more statement. Stanford students create and apply knowledge by thinking and doing, preparing, they create knowledge by thinking and doing, preparing for leadership in a rapidly changing world. So this is how the great universities think. And unless we look into such a culture, of course, we can't raise our level. Research informed teaching. This is one more thing. Some of the universities, they are experimenting with the research informed teaching. What is this? Research led teaching, where students are taught, research findings in their classrooms, in their studies. Research oriented, where students learn research process and methodologies. Research tutored teaching, where students learn through critique and discussions between themselves and staff. Research-based learning, where students learn as researchers. What is the result? What is the result of this? Some of them have done a case study on this research-based learning. So this is outcome, because I don't, if you are interested, you can go through this paper, Innovations in Education and Teaching Innovational volume, like you can go through this. So it enhances the student experience. It increases student satisfaction, student performance, developing intellectual curiosity, enriches the research culture, improves student employability. Higher education. Coming to the higher education, I'll touch upon our higher education. India's higher education system is the world's third largest in terms of enrollment, in number of students. It is next to China and United States. Of course, it is a sorry to say that India has failed to produce world-class universities. I told you the world-class universities are not, produced. It is produced at the classrooms, the level of classrooms, I should say, because higher education is the extension of previous level. So it's unfortunately all our degree classes, all higher education classes have become just the extension of their previous level. So what are the challenges of our higher education of our nation? Say enrollment, the gross enrollment ratio is just 25%. Just imagine, 25%, the quality. Just a second. Battery is running low. Just a second. Just. Sorry for the inconvenience. Okay, there is some issues with my adapter. The battery is coming low. So I'm taking precautions, just sorry for the inconvenience. The challenges of our higher education is, as I said, the enrollment ratio is just 25, the quality of education, so a big challenge. Then infrastructure is very poor, you know that. Then faculty, we can't retain good faculty. All IIT graduates are running, they're just flying. We can't retain them. So that is the main challenge, for us. Okay, I'll tell you, from the government level, the recent initiative was AIM. They're aiming at to bring a some sort of change in the teaching process. So, Atal Innovation Mission, they have started. Niti Aayog has started an institution called AIM, a program called AIM, Atal Innovation Mission, to promote a culture of innovation and entrepreneurship in the country by promoting Atal Tinkering Lab. So here, Atal Tinkering Lab is focusing on science and technology, engineering and maths to give them a hands-on experience. And I should tell you here, they are giving 20 lakhs to any institutions for developing Atal Tinkering Lab, particularly for high school classes, because the very important part of our education is high school, because all these curiosities or interests or transitions are taking place at the level of high school. So at that level, their students are being given a hands-on experience. To give a hands-on experience, this particular AIM is focusing. Okay, thank you. They have got 5 modules here. I won't go deep into this. They have a digital literacy. That's they will be exposed to all computer usage and all. Then ideation, the module, the objective is to help generating multiple ideas. Then design thinking, to frame all this thought process into a proper, to give proper shape. Then computational thinking, the participants will be, they will have different kinds of hardwares and software sensors. They can do a prototype. The ideas they convert into prototype. Then physical computing. So that means do it for yourself type of activities. So this is being promoted to improve the quality of our education. Higher education programs. Here is one more important program. I will just mention this. Swayam Prabha. Here is a group of 32 DTH channel devoted to telecasting high quality education programs on 24/7 basis using the satellite. The contents are provided by NPTEL, IIT, UGC and all. And there is one more program here called SPARK, Scheme for Promotion of Academic and Research Collaborations to improve the research ecosystem. Here, you can invite all great research scholars abroad, particularly from nearly 28 institutions, where they will be, their travel, their remuneration is taken care by that particular project, because you need to apply for that. Now, coming to your personal research, what is your personal reason for publication? I'll show some of the things. It is already being covered. I am reaching the end of my presentation. I'll be touching some of the simple things which is not being covered before. So remember that when you submit your publication or manuscript to any of the journals, they don't see whether you have to complete degree or you have to get a funding or promoted. Okay, they only see the quality of your a strong manuscript, no compromise with the quality. Okay, good content, it is novel, useful, and exciting. Novel in the sense, it need not be novel in the sense of the concept. It can be novel analysis as well. So don't worry about something new you have to think of. Then a good presentation, a clear presented and logically constructed manuscript they look for. Reviewers and editors are able to grasp the scientific significance of your manuscript, what you have presented in your manuscript. How to selection of journal. So don't get into very complicated journals. A good journal, of course, but which is some sort of very familiar to your group. If at all a group of people are doing research under one guide, then you can just publish or look into a journal in which your seniors have already published. It's always safer side, a known journal. And of course, you need to publish a paper in a good impact factor. And remember always, before submission, you need not worry about whether it will be published or not. Because while when you submit, they will reject or accept. Even rejection is also a growth, because in the rejection, they will put various comments. And those comments are very, very useful for us for our research. So that's why don't wait till the end to submit a paper. Just submit when your work is half done. Submit and just see for the results, for the comments. Based on that comment, you can just give a value to your manuscript. Of course, writing a research paper, a good title with less number of words, effective abstract, keywords. Keywords are very important. Don't give some rubbish keywords here, because based on your keywords, it goes to the right reviewer. So that is very important. The keywords must reflect your field. So there is a chance that when you give a wrong keyword here, it will go to a wrong person, and there is a chance that your manuscript will be rejected. Introduction. Introduction is a marketing, I can say. Before that, I'll just something, of course, it is enough told for you, language. I'm not going deep into that. But whatever I observed during my review, and I am reading some papers of some journals, what I find is you need to have a reasonably good English. You are not English postgraduate or so. A reasonably good English is enough. Don't worry about English. But write it in simple sentences. Don't mix up or combine 2-3 sentences together. Always prefer active voice. Active voice, I hope you can understand what is active voice is. And Rama killed Ravana, and Ravana was killed by Rama. That is a passive voice. So always write active voice. Of course, it is not a thumb rule. Generally, it is preferred. Time and tense. I observed many people write a correct sentence, but a wrong time and tense. Grammatically, the sentence is correct, but not when it comes to time and tense. Say, yesterday I met Mr. Ray. 10 years back, I had met. So here, time and tense, you are using a past tense, simple past, and you are using a past perfect tense. Past perfect tense is a past tense of the past. You have to remember that. Past perfect tense is a past tense of the past. So which event has to come when? You need to understand. So here is a statement. You should understand. You just tell me whether it is correct. When I had reached the station, the train left. Right? And still you missed the train. As per your equation, sentence, it tells that you reached the station earlier than the train left. How to change this? say, when I reached the station, the train had left. So this is a mistake. Generally, I observe sentences, of course, it looks very correct. But some people know to explain their experimentation, they use simple present or present tense. But to explain, analysis, discussions, they use past tense. So there is a mismatch. What has happened before and what has happened next? So in your manuscript also, you need to take care of those things. Nothing big and all. So introduction, I tell you a brief introduction about your field and its scope. A brief explanation. Then what are the best works? What are the works and what are the best works carried out in that field? You need to just take the reference. Take a good reference because that gives you a scope. Who has published a good paper in a good journal? Take those references. Always it will give a weightage. Then it shows your depth of your literature survey. Okay. So what you are giving here, it shows the depth of your literature survey. So what are the limitations of that work? You have to tell them what are the limitations of these work already existing. Okay. What is not addressed? That's the meaning is this is what the research gap is all about. Always, what is not addressed is your research gap. And now you are coming to your point and how you are addressing those points in your manuscript. So this is the introduction part, and this is a key because it gives you, you need not give unnecessary textual information in your introduction. What is required? That's enough. So just this is a structure of the whole, just like a shape of a fish, like this: title, abstract, keyword, main text, introduction, methods, results, discussion, conclusion, acknowledgement, and reference. And one more thing I should tell you: many people make a mistake in conclusion. Once again, they give a summary of the entire manuscript. They are not supposed to, because already my abstract is there for that. You need to present what you have shown and what it means to that field. Okay? Then suggest some future experiments and indicate whether they are underway. And avoid unnecessary claims that this manuscript or this research will bring a major change in the field of science and technology. No, don't claim like that. Just be practical. So research proposals. Once again, I don't go deep into that because research proposals, every proposals, they have got a format. You need to fill in that. That is the thing. There is no rocket science in filling the research proposals, but it must be supported with a good publication. Nobody is giving you any research grant without having any background work. You'll see what is the quality of research work we have done. So that is a good publication. Addressing a clear research gap. That is very important. Why you do this? And what research gap you address with the help of this proposal? It should be application based. Nowadays, nobody is looking into any of the proposals without you give a application of your work. Ability to solve real-time problem. This is also one of the attractive things. What is a real-time problem existing? Say we have a dump yard here in Wamanju. Can you give a solution to that? A real-time problem. And what is the uniqueness of your research proposal? And whether your work will end up in a possible startup. Now the government is very particular about this. Whichever the proposal, whether it will end up in a possible startup. That is, they are looking in the business aspect. And they must, because that is what the attitude of even the governments also, because they should have a vision how to promote research, how to make this research in India, to develop it as a profession. No, in India, research is not a profession. That's why we are lagging behind. You need to, at least address those things in the days to come. So here are some funding agencies. I don't go through them. It is told enough time. So I'll be sharing, if you want, one entire PDF consisting all types of funding agencies and all the explanations. Thank you very much. So I once again thank you, the team, research and facility team of St. Joseph Engineering College. They are doing fantastic work. It is a wonderful experience for me also to interact with you. Thank you very much. I thank all the participants as well. Pranams to you.
Thank you, sir. Good afternoon to everyone. We are fortunate today to have a wonderful session by Dr. Rajesh Kumar PC. You have truly inspired us with your expertise, Dr. Rajesh Kumar.
Yeah.
The forum is now. I request the participants to put questions in the chat box. Hello, sir.
Yes, yes.
There is a question regarding how to come out from the research stress during ongoing research.
Okay, research stress, you mean research stress?
Yes. Research stress.
Okay, some amount of stress is required because you should bleed your neurons to get a new new thought. Don't have any expectation. If you worry about research, then worry about stress. Instead, you don't worry about the outcome of the research. Many people, they worry about outcome. If at all you are worried about outcome, it is not a research because J.J. Thomson, as I said, he never had an expectation that he would discover electrons. He was doing his experiment and he got it. And that is a wow moment for him. Like that, don't expect anything about your results. Of course, we need to work gracefully. We need to enjoy the whole process of doing research. At the end of the day, you won't get sometimes some results also. So be aware that, be conscious that not getting a result is also okay. It is one of the phases of the research process. So that's why you have to, one more thing, engage yourself with some activities as well. Research doesn't mean that 24 hours research. You mix up the activities. You be into, just listen to the music, you dance for your favorite song, just be with the friends, just try to share research experience with your friends. Don't be very, conservative, like, no, this is my research, I don't want to share with you. So we need to share, we should help others because research, we need to, help others because without others' help, we are nothing. We are nothing because we are getting the benefit of the great legacy of all those great researchers right from the ancient age, from the rishis till today, who have sacrificed their life. So without folded hands, we have to be gracefully doing our research and helping others as well.
Thank you, sir.
Yes.
We have a next question. What could be the minimum amount of a researcher has to spend?
Even in terms of money.
Amount of time.
No, research in the sense, what do you want to for doing PhD?
Yes.
Okay.
Researcher has to spend, yeah.
Okay, it depends. It depends. There is some disturbance there. It depends on the institution which you are working. If at all you are competent enough, if you get into IISc, you can just enjoy your research. No payment. You will get a stipend. Just chill.
Thank you, sir. Any tips for time management? The next question.
During research?
Yes.
Okay, yes, during research, of course, you need to plan in advance because we never know what happens when. That's why everything must be planned. What you have to do in the first year or six months down the line, what you have to do after 6 months, what you have to do after 6 months, like that, in the first 6 months, second 6 months, third 6 months, and so on. And if you try to abide by that timetable, then you can manage the time, for the research. You can complete the research within time.
Okay, sir. Thank you. none of our universities in India are having international ranking. What could be the reason?
Yeah, that's what the reason is evident, the lack of research. Because if you see any of the institutions, their ranking, the ranking is based on the quality of publications they publish, one thing. Then the quality of innovative works they have carried out, the quality of patent works they have, then the quality of entrepreneurs they have. So this entrepreneurship and research, they go hand in hand. Okay, when a new thought comes, a new idea comes, you can convert that idea into a technology, and which will end up in a big business model. So that's what we need to encourage research at the grassroots level. We need to encourage, not only that, I strongly feel that the research aptitude must be developed right from the KG class. All our teachers must be, doing their research in one or the other way, if not for PhD.
Thank you, sir. There is the next question. How to balance between research, academics, and personal activities?
Yeah, personal activities, research, and you mean to say college work, right?
Yes, sir.
Right? Yeah, academics. Yeah, of course. Yeah, that is there. Of course, when particularly the institutions, particularly the private institutions, where teachers have to do their academics, they have to take workloads, then they have to do their research. There is a limitation, of course, but one thing we can say, every day at least we can read one paper. We can read, not even every day, at least once in a week, we can read one new paper on the topic which we are doing research. So it is challenging, but we can manage. But don't compromise with the consistency. When you are consistent with your work, even if it is small, even if it is very small, in the long run, it will give you a dividend.
Okay, thank you. So last question. Some researchers, they will register for PhD and they will discontinue. What could be the reason?
Because they're not getting their PhDs. they think they want, PhD means if they just get into research, they'll get their job done. No, it is not the case. As I said, research requires it. Of course, it demands some sort of hard work, some sort of going beyond our comfort zones. When people think that okay, this doesn't fit into our comfort zones, when people are ready to spend hours together in WhatsApp, but not ready to go through a single paper at least for in a week or in a month, we can't help. So don't be discouraged. I tell you, even if it is taking time, take enough time, but don't leave your PhD. Just complete your PhD. Then definitely one day you'll enjoy for your decision.
Okay, sir. Thank you. There are many more queries. Due to lack of time, we may not be able to answer them all. Participants, please note, if you are having more queries, you can also contact the resource person through email. Thank you,
yes.
Dr. Rajesh Kumar, for enlightening with your words and clarifying all the queries.
Thank you. Once again, I thank the whole team once again. Dr. Sandhya Das, Dr. Felsi, the whole team, Dr. Babita, and Mr. Rakesh is throughout the program. He is with us. It has been a great from his side. So I thank the management once again. I thank the principal, Dr. Rio, for his wonderful cooperation and support and encouragement. And I thank all the participants. You have invested your time and you kept yourself with us throughout. Thank you very much. Thank you once again.
talk on and higher education. On behalf of college management and the committee, we thank you for motivating all our young professionals and research students by your immeasurable words. Thank you once again, sir. My sincere Mr. Raj, thank all 65 for supportive participants for participating in the webinar. Thank you. Will be sent to the participants' email ID and the Telegram group. With this, we have come to the end of the session. Thank you, one and all.
Thank you, sir.